Welcome to the deep dive. You sent us some really fascinating material,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what we do here, right?
Yeah.
Take your sources, dig in, and we'll pull out the key insights, sort of a personal exploration for you.
Absolutely. And this document titled Take Me to Your Leader, well, that title alone makes you stop and think.
It really does.
Oh.
And then it immediately pivots to uh, a Bob's Big Boy restaurant.
Yeah, it's quite the starting point. Grounds it in something very familiar, but hints at something else.
Right. So our mission today, looking at your source, is to really explore this idea of inner knowing. That gut feeling, that deeper sense.
And how that might connect to something bigger, like a cosmic consciousness.
Exactly. And also that tension, which the source highlights, between this inner wisdom and, well, the physical world we see every day.
Okay, so where should we start? That Bob's Big Boy story seems like the place.
Let's do it. The source paints this picture, right? You're a kid at Bob's Big Boy with your brother and uncle.
Such a normal setting, almost iconic, really. But then there's this spaceman placemat. Take me to your leader.
And it triggers something profound, apparently. It's not just the kitschy phrase.
No, especially for you and your brother. The source uses this interesting phrase, twinned sparks vibrating on a slightly different frequency.
Wow. So putting on those spaceman masks wasn't just kids playing.
It seems like there was a deeper resonance, something more going on than just fun. The source implies a connection, a shared understanding, maybe.
Makes you wonder what that something more actually was.
Well, the source offers a pretty big idea here. It suggests humans come from a cosmic forge.
Cosmic Forge, okay.
Yeah, that we're essentially stardust, temporarily in these vessels of consciousness.
So, like, our bodies are just temporary containers.
That seems to be the angle. And this perspective, the document argues, helps understand the cosmic joke.
The cosmic joke. The idea of the infinite, the whole universe, somehow squeezed into a finite human form. It's mind-bending if you think about it. It really is.
Yeah.
And then the source says we often get too caught up in the physical stuff, cling to the illusion of solidity.
Exactly. Like we take the physical reality as the only reality.
So it's suggesting our everyday experience might not be the whole story.
Precisely. And it even brings in Einstein's work from, over 94 years ago at the time the source was written.
Right. What about Einstein?
Just pointing out how science itself, even back then, showed that matter and energy are interchangeable, EMC Russ, and space and time aren't separate things, they're interwoven.
Okay, so science was already hinting that reality is more fluid than just solid objects.
That's the idea. A glimpse beyond just the material. But the source suggests we often still act like the physical is all there is.
It uses that analogy, right? Confusing the map for the territory.
Exactly. Getting so focused on the representation, the space-time continuum, that we forget it might just be a map of something vaster.
That makes sense. So if we're not just physical beings, what does that mean for how we see ourselves? You mentioned feeling special as a kid.
Right. The source brings that up. You and your brother knew you were special. But it clarifies this wasn't about being better than others.
Not elitist, then.
No, not at all. More like recognizing the sheer extraordinariness of being alive, of existing. It's a fundamental awareness, it seems.
And the source suggests this isn't unique to you two.
That's the key insight here. It proposes everyone has this universal spark, this inherent amazingness.
Universal spark. Okay.
But the difference is maybe not everyone is aware of it. Or aware of where it comes from, its boundless nature.
Like we all have this inner light, but maybe the dimmer switch is down for some, or they haven't found the switch yet.
That's a good way to put it. And the source then explores your childhood feeling about the origin of this spark, this consciousness.
Where did it feel like it came from?
According to the text, you felt it originated far beyond the universe. Not just the stars, but beyond even our local galaxies, from an infinite formless source.
Wow. That's big.
Yeah.
So not just cosmic, but something beyond the cosmos we know.
That seems to be the sense described. That this universal consciousness isn't out there somewhere separate, but it's everywhere. And we are expressions of it.
It actually says, you are the sun and the stars, not metaphorically.
Yeah. It's a powerful statement about unity, isn't it? Total interconnectedness.
It really makes you think how different things would feel if we truly lived from that understanding.
And the source contrasts this with, say, common Western cultural ideas, often focusing on separation, maybe a deity that's distant.
Whereas this points towards an experience of unity, of omnipresence, like some Eastern traditions maybe explore more directly.
Potentially, yeah. The source notes that around age 10, this feeling sparked a real yearning for self-discovery in you. an inner knowing pushing you forward.
And certain words resonated.
Words like India, meditation, yoga, like echoes, the source suggests, from traditions that deliberately map out that inner space.
So the childhood feeling wasn't just a one-off. It was the start of a conscious search, prompted from within.
Exactly. And this inner pull apparently created some friction with more traditional religious structures you encountered.
How so?
Well, the source mentions difficulty with concepts like, say, guilt for ancient events. It didn't align with your inner feeling of life being glorious and incredible, a celebration of creation.
That feeling of dissonance, when external rules don't match your own deep sense of things, I think many people experience that.
Absolutely. And it highlights that your connection with the figure of Christ felt very personal, very direct, like a communion with the source itself, bypassing intermediaries.
Right. The Torah says church services sometimes felt like a lot of talk, lacking substance.
Yeah, and that there was this conviction, this inner knowing that the real experience, the connection you sought, was ultimately something to be found within yourself.
Interesting. So your childhood had these two layers operating.
Seems so. The source describes it as existing on two levels. There was the joyful kid engaging with the world, playing, learning.
The normal stuff.
Right. But alongside that, this deep inner life, this constant, quiet yearning for that cosmic connection, that source.
And you never totally lost touch with that inner world.
The text emphasizes it was never fully abandoned, a persistent awareness, maybe, of that cosmic origin, which leads to the idea that maybe there's a purpose for this spark, as the source calls it, being in a human body.
A purpose beyond just living and dying.
Perhaps. And the source really challenges a common cultural idea here, the notion that connection with the creator, with the source, only happens after you die.
He calls that a peculiar notion.
It does, because your inner knowing, according to the text, insisted that a direct, moment-to-moment connection is possible right here, right now, in life.
Imagine living with that certainty, believing that connection is always available.
It's a profound shift in perspective. And the source acknowledges this wasn't always easy. There were maybe just fleeting glimpses sometimes.
Glimpses of what?
Of ecstatic joy. Feelings like visiting an incredible place in dreams, even if you couldn't fully remember upon waking. Hints of something more.
And it mentions friends or guides.
Yeah, an intriguing mention of potential assistance on the journey. Unseen help, maybe.
But the core driving force the source emphasizes was your own unwavering faith, that powerful inner knowing. That was the compass.
Yes. Guiding you towards consciously experiencing that connection, that joy that you sensed was possible.
Which ties perfectly into that quote you mentioned earlier
Yeah.
from Zoran.
Right. It really encapsulates the whole thing. You search for the leader outside, human, while the commander of the cosmos resided silently within your own heart.
The commander of the cosmos within. Wow.
It's a powerful image, isn't it? Shifting the search inward.
Absolutely. And this leads directly into the final part of the source, the dragon trial. Tell us about that.
Well, it's presented as a kind of prompt for you, the listener. It asks you to recall a time you had a really strong inner knowing, a gut feeling.
Even if it went against what everyone else was saying or what seemed logical.
Exactly. When that inner voice contradicted external information or the apparent physical reality.
And the trials to reflect on that.
Yeah. Did you listen to that voice? What happened? What was the outcome? And what does that tell you about the difference between just knowing facts, external knowledge, and this deeper inner wisdom?
It's really asking you to validate your own intuition.
To acknowledge the wisdom of your inner spark, as the source puts it, recognizing its presence and its potential power in your life.
It's a great exercise.
Yeah.
Trusting that internal commander.
Mm-hmm.
So wrapping up this deep dive, let's just quickly recap the core ideas we've explored from your source.
Okay. Well, there's the fundamental idea of our cosmic nature, right? Being more than just physical.
Yeah, that we have this potential for a direct, lived connection to a universal consciousness, to the source.
And the caution against getting too fixated on the physical, the illusion of solidity, potentially missing the bigger picture.
And maybe most importantly, the power and importance of recognizing, trusting, and cultivating that inner knowing, that voice within.
The commander of the cosmos in your heart.
Exactly. Which brings us to a final thought for you, building on that dragon trial.
What if you started consciously listening to that inner knowing more often? How might intentionally cultivating that connection, prioritizing that internal guidance?
How might that actually shape your experience of reality going forward? What possibilities could open up if you really started trusting that inner wisdom the source talks about? Something to ponder.